Sometimes it feels like the sun will never rise, like the birds will never sing again. Believe in a power greater than what you are going through. When you don't know what to do, keep breathing.
That's right. When you don't know what to do, just keep on breathing. From the City of Angels in Los Angeles, welcome to all my listeners out there in Radio Land. I'm Dave, the Caregiver's Caregiver, at caregiverdave.com, along with my lovely co-host, who is not here today, so I won't even say that. Carletta Cole is on vacation, but hopefully we'll see her next week. And we're also coming to you live on demand 24/7 on numerous syndicated radio and podcast networks, on 26 global audio video platforms, including iHeartRadio, iTunes, YouTube, Spreaker, SoundCloud. Oh my gosh, the list goes on and on. And in fact, we are voted #1 caregiver podcast of the top 50 on Player FM, #2 on FeedSpot out of the top 60, and #2 on caringvillage.com. And we have an especially exciting show planned for you today. Angie Patterson, the award-winning author of Making Photography Easy and Fun, and the creator of an upcoming online course, 37 Ways to Improve Your Photos in Minutes. Her photos have been featured on websites, calendars, and exhibitions, and created on murals. Chicken Soup for the Soul creator Jack Canfield says, I really encourage you to get a copy of Angie's book, How to Learn How to Make Photography a Lot Easier and More Effective for Yourself. So, Angie, welcome to the show. Welcome to the Caregiver Dave show. And we are so happy to have you on. I usually like to ask my guests just, who is Angie Patterson and why was she placed on this earth?
Wow, thank you, Dave. And thank you for having me on your show. I consider myself, I guess, here on this earth. That's an interesting question. I have not been asked that question before.
Oh, good.
Yeah, that's a dandy. I consider myself to be here to help actually share the beauty of the world through photography, through a lens, and encouraging other aspiring photographers and really anyone that just has an appreciation for capturing special life moments, any important life moments, to just go forth and share that with the world too.
Well, that's great. And that's a wonderful picture behind you. Is that a photo that you have taken?
Thank you. Yes, it is. That is Peyto Lake in the Canadian Rockies.
Wow, very beautiful. And where are you located?
I am in Grand Prairie, Alberta, Canada.
So you're also Canadian. Imagine that.
Yes, yes, and not too far from the Rockies. So it's fantastic.
Well, that's great. And it's such a joy to have you on the show because I am a photography buff. I have taken more home movies of my life for the last 50 years than you can even imagine. And in fact, they're all VCR, they're all 8mm, they're all stuff that I can't even watch anymore. But they made a movie about my life. And so he wanted to know if I had any photos and movies. And I says, yeah, but, I don't have a VCR for you or a projector. He says, don't worry about it. And so he took all of my films and he digitized them all. It took him 3 months. And he used a lot of them in the movie. And he just gave them back to me. And I'm just going through watching this stuff that I haven't seen in decades, and it is just so amazing. And I can't believe that I have, just taken so much film of the kids and Christmas and, birthdays and this and that. And I'm thinking, we've got a camera right on our hip now, and I rarely use it as much as we used to. We used to just set it up, turn it on, and okay, let's open all the presents. We don't do that anymore with the camera. But let's get to the questions I want to ask you. You are an award-winning author of Making Photography Easy and Fun. Now, some people would disagree with you that photography is easy and fun. So how do you make it easy and fun?
Yeah,
I think it's easy and fun, but not everyone agrees with me.
No, and that's a really interesting point, I think, because in the beginning, so when I say in the beginning, I mean my granny gave me a camera when I was 7. So and I've just loved taking photos. But it was about 20 years ago when I purchased kind of what I would call my first good camera. And it wasn't it was fun, but it wasn't necessarily easy and fun. So I took myself off to a workshop because it can be confusing. And so one of the reasons I wrote this book was to help aspiring photographers or anyone that's interested in photography that doesn't really know where to begin. So how to make it easy to begin, make it easy to begin. So I kind of broke it down into steps, and that's still how I learned in the process is, it can just be, step by step. You learn a tip, read it somewhere, hear it somewhere, take some practice photos, and you just keep building your skills until it becomes more comfortable. You become more confident as a photographer, and then also your own unique style starts to emerge.
And do you encourage people to do movies as well, or just still pictures, or what?
I think a combination of both. I'm more into still pictures myself, but I am this summer. I'm really looking forward into branching out more into the movie sector. So I think part of it as well is just what speaks to an individual. If the still photos are, really what gets your attention, and, you'd like to walk out in the woods and be close to nature and just taking still photos, or, maybe it'll be a movie of your pets, or the family members that you're with. So I think whatever speaks to your heart.
And I'm sure you'll agree that some of the best pictures that I have gotten are the ones that I pull off of movies. Because, similar to how they do photo shoots, click, 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 because they're bound to get a good one in there somewhere. But it's the same theory with a movie. If you're just rolling the film and you say, oh, let's just stop the movie and we'll fast forward, or we'll go slow, and that's a good one. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think that's a great analysis of that process, Dave. And because you're right, I think you can pull out those really memorable sections of that video or movie.
And let's not forget that the majority of my audience are burned out caregivers, and they need some purpose in life besides caregiving. They need some hobbies, some downtime. This would be a great hobby for a burned out caregiver, don't you think?
I do. And I think for several reasons. One is, it's just my personal preference. People are also very comfortable taking photos with their cell phone, or their smartphone. I tend to just leave it in my pocket or in my vehicle, because I do find that there's a different type of disengagement from all of that busyness that may occur through phones when you've got just a camera in your hand. But a phone is definitely better than not having anything. But that being said, I think whatever resonates with someone, and, I think photography can just help the mind relax, can help the body relax and rejuvenate. You get into a different environment. It's like being, kind of being immersed and in the zone. And then you just kind of let the rest of what you think the to-do list might be, or the busy things in the world, just kind of let them fade away.
Yeah, people probably have spent a lot of money in the past buying a big expensive Canon with interchangeable, zoom lenses and this and that, and 35 millimeter film. Do those still work? I mean, do people still use those, or are they converting over to the digital cameras now?
I would feel definitely more so to the digital cameras. There's convenience of that. You can see what you have for your photos right off the bat.
Never run out of film.
That's right. You swap out some cards. And, I think for the burned out caregiver too, it's, if you're not sure where to begin, it's just, what if you could just take 15 minutes in your day? So it doesn't feel like it's something that's overwhelming, something that's on the to-do list, even though it could be on the fun to-do list.
Sure.
But, just find 15 minutes and just begin somewhere. And then often, 15 minutes can lead to half an hour or an hour if that's, if you have that kind of time.
Sure. And it's such a legacy too, especially if you're taking creative pictures of your loved one, maybe it's an elderly grandfather or a spouse or something. And there's just so many opportunities to get some amazing, candid pictures of them. And you can almost tell a story like a storybook, no?
Yes. Yeah. It's like you can chronicle that stage of their life, or many years of their life. And I think just sharing the photos as well, it brings them into the connection of the story, something to talk about and connect through.
Now, you actually have a course, 37 ways to improve your photos in minutes. That's a lot of different ways. Can you share some of the most popular ones or the easiest ones?
Sure. So the easiest ones, if you would like to, improve your photos right away, one question I always ask any aspiring photographer, in a course or just in conversation, is to think about what is your subject. Mm-hmm. So meaning, is your subject, for example, then someone you're caregiving for? Maybe it's a pet, a family group, what you're chronicling. So just have a look around and see what you may have included in that photo or one in the past that you don't need, unnecessary clutter, elements that don't necessarily fit and they're not part of the story, composition, how you're setting your photo up. And lighting can be a really key, what's really key in photography. So even as a person goes around their day, if you just begin to observe the light, you can see the light's different on a sunny day, for example, versus a cloudy day, or that beautiful golden glow of sunrise or sunset. It can just add a whole new element to one's photos where you can just see improvements really immediately.
Mm-hmm. Is it cheating if we use Photoshop to remove a couple of things that we don't like in our photo?
Well, there's that big question. Well, it maybe depends what the photo is being used for, right? If it's some in a photo competition, then yes, the judges will consider that cheating. But I think, for one's own use, and it's just how comfortable do you feel from doing that? It's kind of like if that infamous garbage can, is in the photo, then sure, maybe it doesn't matter if you just make it disappear.
Sure. So your passion is nature photography and teaching aspiring photographers how to use their cameras confidently and taking fun pictures, of course. Do you really get a lot out of just taking someone who maybe has never taken a picture in their life and just reliving, maybe your first experiences with a camera? Maybe you were very young and here this person's 34 years old and they never touched a camera, and just watching them explore and it's like you're doing it all over for the first time yourself, isn't it? Yes.
That's a really interesting perspective you bring to that. And I would agree totally. It's like reliving it. And, when I'm helping an aspiring photographer, there are two things. One is, I do my best to put myself back into when I was just starting out, beginning, and the confusion, so that I can kind of be in their shoes. But the other is, it is just such a really great feeling when you see that light bulb moment go off for someone. You see the comprehension on their face and the excitement over learning this new skill, and they've accomplished a goal they set out with their camera photography. And it might just be, well, it's not just, because it's not that simple necessarily, but becoming comfortable operating the buttons and dials. That sense of comprehension. It's really fun to go through that experience with people.
And when do we delete photos? I mean, I've had the experience, even on my phone, oh my gosh, all these photos, they're all not great, and I didn't have time to delete the ones. Do you delete a lot of photos, or do you keep even the ones that maybe aren't perfect?
I delete more now than I used to. I think because then it's kind of building up my collection of improved photos.
Nice.
And I just like to keep the system a little cleaner, I guess, if I can, than just being overrun with photos. In the beginning, I kept everything, and I have photography friends that literally keep everything. And I have photography friends that have become very discerning with what they delete. But here's another photography tip for your viewers is, rather than deleting rather than deleting with the card in the camera, then I will upload my photos, say, to my computer or an external hard drive, and then periodically I will format my memory card. That will clean off all the photos, but it will also help keep, how I refer to it, keep your card healthy. So you're not always just perhaps reusing the same card, deleting your photos, but you just kind of clean it up a little.
Yeah, and maybe do your editing or deleting after it's on your computer, perhaps. Seems like maybe a simpler process. Because, you know, I'll give some of my camera to take a picture of my wife and I, and they'll take like 15 pictures. And they all look great, and sometimes it's hard to pick the best one. I usually won't ask my wife because she'll always pick the one that I look bad, and she claims I always pick the one where she looks bad. So I just make the decision for her. And sometimes I feel guilty deleting a picture that's a perfectly good picture. It's just that I got one that looks better, you know? So
Right.
how do you get over that guilt about deleting a bad picture? Or is that still a good
Yeah, you know, I have done that sometimes too. And it's sort of down the road, I'll think, oh, darn, I kind of wish I hadn't done that.
Yeah.
So, you know, in those situations, then I maybe will keep a few extra ones.
Okay.
And otherwise, it's like, well, I guess when it's gone, it's gone. And it's like, it might even be looking at, okay, would I do that a little differently next time? Would I decide to keep, say, 7, you know, instead of 5?
Yeah, or some are horizontal, you know, landscape, some are portrait. And you might say to yourself, I just want a portrait of this one. But later on, while you're doing a website or something, God, I wish I had that picture in landscape, you know. So, yeah, that's a good idea. So you took a lot of pictures of your parents, yes?
Yes.
You were their caregiver.
Yes.
So
And
what did those pictures turn out like?
so, you know, that was kind of a double whammy, I guess, if you will, double bonus, is that I not only was I taking photos of them, but also it was a way to connect by me being, say, out in nature, you know, taking photos, and then it was a way for my mom and I to connect, you know, so we could have conversations about, you know, what did I see in the outside world, right? And it was mentally invigorating for her to have conversations about, you know, what I had seen in the day and talk about nature and yeah, it just always brightened her day. And so then it got to the point
she was
where
a
I would
fan, and she really quizzed you on
she did.
why this picture, or, you know, where were you, and you know how did it change you today, or something like that.
Right. And you know, you know, say if there was a, you know, vacation, short vacation or something, then coming back to share those vacation photos are a way to keep the family and grandchildren connected to her. And it got to the point where then I would just wait for her to point out maybe, you know, some occasional favorites. And then I would just go and get them printed, get them enlarged and printed and hang them on her wall where she could see them.
You know, thank God for Google Photos, because they've got way more photos than I ever thought I had. And then it'll just pop up on my phone. Hey, here's a memory from 2008. And it will just show you like 20 of these pictures that I totally forgot about, totally forgot I was even there. And many times I'll snap a screenshot of something because, that's a great picture. I want to post that now. And sometimes I'm there for like 20 minutes just looking at these pictures, and then I'll move on to the next one they've got, you know, 2017, and just reliving the fun times that I had. And I'm only 69, you know. I thought that wasn't supposed to happen until you're like 80 or 90 and you're confined to your house and you're bored and you can't go anywhere.
Right.
But it's kind of a waste of time, but not really, because I'm nurturing my memories, you know.
Absolutely. You know, and I love to do that too. And, you know, both of my parents have passed away now, but, you know, sometimes we were over visiting, you know, I kind of split the caregiving with my sister and my siblings. But also, you know, some days there was nothing more fun than just hauling out the photo albums and just also letting them, you know, my parents reminisce and telling stories, you know, and fun times for them, and, you know, and just sharing family history.
And I'm realizing that, you know, maybe my kids aren't interested in seeing the whole movies of when they were younger again, you know, because they remember seeing them all their life while we had the projector and stuff. But their children, my grandchildren, seem to be very interested in seeing mom when she was their age. Or I even have a couple of great grandchildren now. and it's interesting to see, you know, your 2-year-old who look so much like their mother and who look so much like their grandmother when they were that age. No wonder I can't keep their names straight. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do. Yeah, it's fascinating that, I think, isn't it? When we, as we go through the generations and, the grandchildren and, for me as well, my nieces love to look at photos of my parents as well and just keep those stories alive and just share all those good memories and continue down that memory lane through photography and through photos.
Especially when those who are no longer with us are in the pictures, and it's just so warm, just it's like, wow, I can remember that when that picture was taken, and the memory, the mind is an amazing thing. And let's face it, as we get older, we seem to lose a lot of brain cells and we forget a lot of things, but it can come back just like that with one picture or one song on the radio.
Yeah, it's fascinating, that, isn't it? It's back there, filed away in the mind, and just, whether it can be a smell of apple pie, maybe your grandma used to make, for example.
Yeah.
And, right. And the pictures and the movies. And then it just, all these stories maybe hadn't thought about for a while just come right to the forefront.
Yeah. And it's an excellent way to connect with family, with the grandkids, because let's face it, grandkids are into, their phones and video games and this and like, and, what does a 69-year-old have in common with a kid anymore? But this can be a way to say, hey, you want to see a picture of your mom when she was your age? Or, hey, you want to see a picture of your mom doing this crazy thing on this zip line? And all of a sudden you've got a new connection where maybe you guys were having trouble finding things to talk about and it was awkward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great point, Dave. It's because that just can open up, I think, as you say, so many avenues for, or at least an avenue for conversation. And wow, it just almost brings kind of a different perspective and reality. Like, wow, maybe my dad did this, or, my grandpa did that. And wow, well, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, especially, if you have an elderly grandparent that you're caring for and, you want the kids or the grandkids to take an interest in the elderly, and it doesn't come naturally. But if you say, hey, would you like to see a picture of grandpa when he was 18 years old water skiing, and their vision of grandpa is this old geezer who they never really knew him as kids sometimes think that you were born old and you will remain old and you'll die old. Right. They don't realize that one day they're going to look like that. And it's a great way to really let them know more about life, no?
Mm-hmm. There's a series of photos of my dad when he was probably in his early 20s. And he was, he did a camping, so tenting on his bicycle with a buddy of his. And, and I still look at that and kind of marvel, because that's not like he had gone through that stage of his life by the time I was born. But, for the grandchildren to see that, and it's like, wow, I mean, that was just kind of like a different era almost. And it's just really fascinating to them that, wow, grandpa did that, and grandma did, other things. Maybe she was there too, but, they just have different adventures. And
well, I know there's other people out there with all these photos and negatives and videos that they haven't done anything with. They haven't digitized them, and they don't have a VCR, and they don't have a projector. Do you recommend them getting them digitized so they can relive them again? I mean, it's so expensive to do. If it wasn't for my guy doing it, I mean, how can we afford to make these digital so we can have more access to them? Any tricks, any ways that we should be looking into?
Well, I'm actually going to give mine to my nephew. And
make them do it.
he's going to take care of that. I went through my old family movies, while we're probably going back to like about 1930, maybe even younger here. So I've got some of the old Super 8 and 8 millimeter movies from my mom and dad. Well, yeah, my brother just I probably shouldn't reveal his age. But anyway, they've been around a while. so I was talking to my nephew about it because I purchased the projector and a converter a few years ago.
Really?
And I put these Super 8 movies and 8mm movies onto VHS, but only made one copy. So now it's like, okay, I want to go the next step, right? So I can get it beyond the VHS. So
and you probably lost some quality because you're making a copy of a copy. Now you're making a copy of a copy of a copy, which was the problem I had, because the last thing I want to do is go find a projector and do it all over again, because it was a nightmare. You know, I just remember I was like 25 and you know, my parents' movies and stuff. But what do you suggest for somebody who wants to start, you know, doing this photography thing? What kind of camera should they get? How much should they spend? Where should they buy it?
I always suggest that one of the first steps is to go and visit a camera retailer. And the reason I suggest that is because I feel that purchasing a camera is a little bit like clothes shopping, right? You want to get the one that feels right and fits for you. So when I say fits for you, it's like, how comfortable is it to hold in your hand, right? If you want to be using this a lot, you want it to be comfortable. You don't want it to be too big and heavy, but you also don't want it to be too small so that it's difficult for you to get to the buttons and dials. And then give a little bit of thought, even if you don't know for sure yet, because you never know where this could take you. But if you have an idea what you would like to take photos of, or what you think you would like to take photos of, so that you can get some help, you know, from the retailer to just kind of make suggestions for you, you know, and look at different models of cameras. And then whether you know, where you decide to start or what you decide to buy, you have a starting point, because at least also, you know, then how they're going to feel to hold in your hand, a little bit about what they can do for you. You know, maybe you don't want to mess with a camera with detachable lenses, you know, but maybe you'd like a zoom that fits into, you know, into the camera body. So you're not having to have a collection of different lenses, but it still meets your needs for what you like to photograph.
Yeah. Well, I can't believe how fast the time has gone. Mary, is there, tell us about your book, what you hope to get, what you hope readers will get out of it, and how they can purchase it.
Okay. Thank you, Dave. So my hope that readers would get out of it is an easy way for them to begin understanding their camera and some tips for photography that saves them time, because it's all compiled into a book instead of needing to maybe research this and research that and not knowing which steps perhaps to begin with. They can also jump around in the book. So if the beginning is not what they're looking for, they can go closer to the end and have some tips for composition. And on lighting, there's some caution tips, like don't format your memory card unless you have your photos backed up first. And
always have the light in front of you and not behind the subject.
Yes, unless you want to create a silhouette. But you're right. Yeah, look for that golden light. And so Making Photography Easy and Fun is available on Amazon. So Amazon.ca and Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble. And my website is simply just AngiePattersonPhotography.com. If you go /book, there's information on where you can purchase the book and a few more details.
That's great. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And I just want to tell our guests to remember that all our live shows become recorded pod and video casts on all your favorite platforms that I mentioned earlier. And my #1 newly released book, Secrets from the Hammock, Uncommon Wisdom for Uncommon Times and Spreading Wisdom All Over the World, available wherever books are sold, and also on my free membership website, caregiverdave.com. And please join my Caregiver Dave Facebook community of about 34,000 caregivers, where you'll learn all about my new Caregiver Wellness Retreat and Mastermind in Acapulco that I offer to burned out caregivers trying to keep as many of those 30%ers that die before their loved ones do alive. And if you click on the like or follow button on whatever platform you're watching or listening to this interview on, it helps us reach even more caregivers by improving Google's search engine algorithms. So thank you again to all my listeners out there all over the world for tuning in every Wednesday and making us the #1 caregiver podcast on the internet. And thank you, Angie, so much for coming on the show. And may God richly bless you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Dave.
Hey everybody, it's Dave Nasani, otherwise known as Caregiver Dave, and I'm coming to you live from this beautiful Acapulco villa, which I like to say is the perfect prescription for caregiver burnout. And I have a unique opportunity to bring 14 burned out caregivers up here so that they can decompress and do all the things that they need to do. But this is just a bonus. It actually comes with the 6-month Zoom coaching program. It's a one-on-one consult with me, Caregiver Dave, to identify where you are and where you need to go. It's a 6 monthly small group coaching sessions to smash any obstacles between you and your ideal vision of what a caregiver needs to be and caregiver success. You get my 3 free books and instructions on boundaries, grief, self-care, organization, asking for help, learning how to say no, avoiding burnout, avoiding depression, avoiding perfectionism, avoiding isolation, avoiding resentment, delegation, team building, how to have fun, how to have no guilt, the importance of gratitude, and after caregiving when you're no longer a caregiver. But this 7-day bonus is absolutely free. It comes with the coaching program that you pay for. And the food is all inclusive. I'm telling you, 7 days and 7 nights here is amazing. This is truly paradise. And I highly recommend it. For more information, go to caregiverdave.com. That's going to send you to my other website. And if you want a shortcut to get there immediately, just go to acapulcodave.com. Thanks again. I look forward to seeing you in Acapulco.
Sometimes it feels like the sun will never rise, like the birds will never sing.